Dharti, thank you so much for coming on to Startup Zero today. I'm really looking forward to sort of getting to know you, getting to know your investment strategy. You've been a force in the Thai New York ecosystem. So I really want to connect with that system and learn more about what you guys are doing. But before we get into all of that, let's start with a quick introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Happy to. First of all, thank you, Dhaval, for giving me this opportunity to talk about my life story and my investment strategy. Happy to do it. I'm one of those people who's been an accidental everything. So I became an accidental entrepreneur. First generation, had no clue what I was signing up for. 23 years ago, back when there wasn't enough. Great organizations like TiE, even though TiE is 30 years old, I had not heard about it. It was my loss for sure. But yeah, so accidental entrepreneurship, one business led to another, learned a lot on the job, made a lot of mistakes, lots of trials and errors, but it was just amazing being an entrepreneur. Still doing that, still at it, still making mistakes and still learning. But I have managed to have a successful marketing consulting company here in the US for the last 23 years. Initially, it was more focused on direct marketing. That animal, as we all know, has kind of slowly died a death. Got kind of converted into digital marketing, and then, of course, associations like the DMA became the ANA, which is the Association of National Advertisers. So the whole space has changed, but I've had to evolve with it, and it's been really an amazing journey, in doing that as well, keeping pace with technology and everything that's digital. So that's my business here. It's still kind of my bread and butter, and that's what I do for a living even now, my day job. Through the process of building that company, met some amazing companies, clients all over the world. Again, accidentally fell, into the discovery that printing, was very cheap out of India, and there were, clients here who would love to kind of experiment, see if the same kind of quality was coming out of there, and they could save money and pay less, and ended up setting up a digital, printing company about 20 years ago. I've dragged a lot of my family into that business, so we all do it together, of course. We've been doing that successfully for a while. We have clients in 9 countries. I set up a small wine business, which I think for me has really been my tie in a way, because that business, taught me a lot about relationships, about networking, how to incubate, how to really make connections, where to find people that can help you, start your business, scale your business, and sustain it and scale it, right? Obviously. So that was my little wine imports company. I had multiple pivots in that company, 14 years old, and I recently actually, closed that company. It was really, really tough managing with me being here and the company being in India. It was definitely an idea ahead of its time, and I had a lot of fun putting it together. But it wasn't sustaining, because I was, I'm here and the company is back in India. Right. But from it came a new project last year, which, a couple of friends and I have started together in Argentina. So we have invested in a sustainable packaging solution space. We're doing a research project in Argentina. In the wine space, so still to do with that world and continuing that. I've got some amazing friends in the business in different parts of the world. We have a small family trust, Dhaval, that empowers women from underrepresented and underserved communities in Gujarat and Maharashtra. That initiative is led by my sister-in-law, so it's all in the family in a sense. So now we are hoping to pass that on to my brother for his son, and for me for my daughter for the next generation. Although my daughter doesn't want to do anything with entrepreneurship as of now, she's got a mind of her own, but we'll see. But so I've been in New York for 28 years, and I was born and raised in India. But I came here 28 years ago, and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and always eager to learn and take on new things. I've been very fortunate to really be mentored by some incredible people, whether it was direct marketing or wines or printing for that matter. I owe a lot to, of course, my brother, my dad, and some few mentors that, we worked together and done a great job. Speaking of networks, Dhaval, friendship is where, again, I became an accidental investor. A few friends got together and said, about 7 years ago, why don't we, look at doing some investments together in this beautiful animal called startup. And obviously I had no idea what I was signing up for, like a lot of other things that I've done in life, as you can see the pattern here. But always eager to learn and, happy to be involved in something that kind of, enriched my life as an entrepreneur or even individually, and learn from amazing people who know better. And I try to surround myself with such people. So Bodhi Capital is something that, happened just because a few friends got together and said, let's invest together. And that was 7 years ago. We have a lead investor who, kind of does all the heavy lifting, the hard work, writes the big checks. And we hang on to his coattails and, say yes, no, and maybe so. But it's become a large group now. We're almost 22 members in the LLC. And we've done a lot of investments over the last 7 years. I have personally invested in 6 companies through Bodhi Capital. And the deal flow has been a combination between the lead investor and a few of us. As we all learned kind of the ropes, we started getting more exposed to this world. And it's an amazing, fascinating world, as I'm sure you know. And so we've done collectively pretty well. We had one exit from it last year. And a lot about my TiE avatar, which is really now my day job, to be honest, between TiE New York and TiE Women. It's just been absolutely fantastic. So that's my little story.
That's fantastic. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around everything that you've done. It's been such a amazing story. Accidental entrepreneur, but a serial entrepreneur. You've started many companies. Some successes, a couple of failures in there. So I always feel like failures, you could probably learn a lot more. And that failures are really what help you grow. And then that's really what drives your successes. So congratulations on those.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then what we're going to talk a lot more about is your investing journey. I think you said you started about 7 years ago with Bodhi Capital. Tell us a little bit about that initial start. What was the thinking when the friends got together and said, let's create this LLC, let's create a group and actually get more into the startup ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely. So the lead investor, his name is Aditya Matu, and he, really we took advantage of his background, his expertise. So he did become a doctor, by education, by profession, and all of that, and then got this bug, to start investments. So he actually does have an MBA, and he's, over time quit his other, job as well as a doctor, believe it or not, and has become almost a full-time investor. And, he does really well. So a lot of, legacy, a lot of pedigree there, and he really knows, the space that he's in. But the advantage there was because of his domain expertise, we were, of course, initially looking at quite a lot of health tech and life sciences, and because that was his background. We've diversified over the last 7 years. But, for me, I think from my perspective, Dhaval, what I did, and of course, I was doing other things at the time. So we spent time together as a group. Every time he had something that caught his eye, the nice thing that he did was he introduced all of us to the founding team. To the growth story. And, so that decision making was really our own. And while it was great and encouraging to have him as the leader and, taking charge and also, writing the checks, we were exposed to, the deal flow. We were exposed to everything that was happening as a process. So I was like this little, kid in a corner, absorbing like a sponge does. And I was just learning because I was very curious and I wanted to understand how you could do more of this and, make it better over time. And, so over the years, I've heard all kinds of pitches and all kinds of, founder stories. And it's just been a fascinating journey. And lots of, again, like I said, we've diversified. So we've done a little bit of fashion tech and we've done hospitality. We've done fintech as well, and so it's a really nicely rounded portfolio. So for me, I think the interesting part was learning in the beginning, and then asking myself the questions, right? That I definitely would have asked, when I was an entrepreneur, right? People should have asked me if they were going to invest in my company. And so, there is no formula that will really, to everyone has a different approach, whether it's spray and pray, or whether it's, I'll come in at a late stage and I'm only going to look at women founders. I think for me, it's really been evolving as per the environment that I've been in. And because I've been surrounded by really smart people, I think I just, took advantage of that, learned a lot and asked a lot of questions, from whatever I knew as an entrepreneur and where I had failed. And like you rightly said, I think looking at failure as a bad word is just a stigma we need to get rid of, right? Because
Absolutely.
that's really what teaches you, the value of entrepreneurship, the value of scaling, and, very simple things, right? A lot of times I would forget to ask, hey, have you invested in this company? What's the skin in the game for you, right? It's great you have this amazing idea, but what have you done for it? Sweat is great, ideas are great, they're coming out of every corner you turn to. So little things like that. And so I picked up a lot on that. So I really owe a lot to Bodhi Capital in terms of my learning and the exposure that I got. And listening to other people ask questions, right? What were they looking at? And, like what was Aditya looking at? And of course, we were looking at early stage companies because that was the excitement for us. We wanted to be part of the growth story. And so I've stuck with that as a philosophy.
Fantastic. And absolutely having that mentor, someone who is a little more experienced, a little more knowledgeable is so important. And not just writing a check and then walking away, but being part of that process, I think, is also so important. So that's fantastic. And those are sort of great sort of things to have just as you're getting started. Over those 7 years, being in New York, you said you've been able to diversify your portfolio. Tell us a little bit more about how you sort of look at these deals and how you start to analyze them. How do you look for that diversification?
So other than the first couple of years where I was a little more hands-off and in the learning mode, for the last 5 years, and then this applies to everything that I do, whether it's outside of Bodhi Capital, even as an investor for, TiE, for everything that we get from here. And then I've also done, 2 small investments in a syndicate called Plum. And so for me, the philosophy really has been, to look at companies that are definitely coming up with, a problem that they're solving, but they have, taken the trouble to go out and validate that a little bit. And they've got some excitement around, their concept or their idea, and they've been able to, validate that and prove it. Give me a POC, give me an MVP, give me an MMP, whatever it is. And I want to be part of those conversations, right? And I really, and that's why early stage, right? Because obviously at late stage, nobody's going to encourage you. They're going to be like, get lost, right? But the minute, and for me, the founder is absolutely the most critical component in any decision making that I've done over the years, right? I do like to, look the founder in the eye and have that first conversation, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, whatever. I've had to do it again and again, because I really want to, get into that head and see if that's someone that I see myself with for the next 5 years or 7 years, or, that I have the patience to deal with that personality. Because if I'm going to be involved, even if it's part-time, it's a few hours, a month, it doesn't matter. I want us to be aligned, from all perspectives, right? Whether it's philosophical, ethical, moral. So I want that alignment with the founder.
Absolutely.
That's really important. And it could be co-founders, it could be a team, but the story, right? What is the heart of this and where it came from? And, I like that attachment a lot. And it has made a difference in the way that, I have evolved my portfolio, for sure. And of course, I'm also learning in the process.
That's fantastic. You mentioned Plum Alley. Give us a little bit of what Plum Alley is set up to do and how you sort of got involved with them.
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the partners, managing director at Plum Alley, is a really close friend of mine, Avantika Dang, and she's actually now leading a lot of our chapter initiatives in TiE, New York. She's a terrific entrepreneur herself, an investor, and she joined Plum Alley a few years ago. And, she and we actually happened to be advising a company together, and we were talking. And then, I said, you have to come to TiE, you have to join TiE. And good for her. She did. She's, now on the board, and, thankfully for me, she's really an ally. She's amazing. And similarly, she introduced me to a lot of, what was happening in Plum Alley. Plum Alley is a syndicate that focuses on, gender diverse founded companies and in the impact space. And, they're really, redefining how investing is done. So for me, that was also, a different learning curve, more late stage. So I was really, a spectator in a way, and, listening to questions that were coming from people who were, doing this for maybe decades, right? And so, and of course, Avantika is herself a great investor, and she's someone you should definitely interview on startup steroids. So she and I, would talk, and then we would discuss things. I would ask her questions. So I got a lot of access to good opportunities because of, the knowledge sharing that she's been so kind to do. And so I invested in 2 companies through Plum Alley. Out of Bodhi Capital, we did have 1 exit last year. So that's been
fantastic.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
It's a good story to share, right? Yeah. So, but Plum Alley is also a very interesting investment syndicate. It's they're doing really well.
And I love the fact that now you're sort of moving up the food chain to later stages, and really understanding how that investors think at that stage, and then bringing that learning back to the seed stage companies and really guiding them through. Tell us, like, once you do write the check and once you are committed to a company, what does the process look like afterward? How do you sort of continue to work with them?
It's a combination for me, Dhaval. So what I end up doing is, if it's obviously the early stage ones is a little easier to be involved in, because that's how we wanted it. So one of us is always looking at it very closely. We do have investor updates, very regularly. Some of the companies I've joined the advisory board of, and which is really helpful in keeping in touch. I'm not a good micromanager, as an investor. So, because I really feel that once you've done it, you'll have to let them go and go do what they know to do best. And because if I started to micromanage, it's yet another enterprise of mine, and I don't want that, right? It's
Right.
really somebody else's.
Right.
So I do, in that sense, step away. But when I feel I can make a difference, I do get involved. So things that I've managed to kind of have domain expertise on, so a lot of go-to-market space I get involved in. If it's a B2C play, then I do get, and fortunately they do ask me to be involved in that, so which is a nice part. So it's really a combination, but for the most part, it's not heavy, heavy lifting that I do.
Direct investment. But I think the founders knowing that they have someone on their team that has the marketing expertise, yes, that has the go-to-market knowledge, I think that's so important. And then when the questions do arise, they can reach out to you.
That I think definitely helps. I mean, I've seen that is great even with the TiE investments that we do. And it's also about opening doors for these founders, right? I think that's where they need the early stage ones, especially, right? Because they're the ones asking for all that help and those questions. And so just tapping into my network, and so I'll reach out and to the founder and say, okay, this person is looking for this kind of a product or service, go connect with him. And a lot like how Startup Steroid works. It's just a great concept, and it's a great model to kind of sustain and scale. So we do that a lot. As a group we do that. And also outside of that for TiE also we do that. Help build those networks and leverage them.
Absolutely. So we've touched on TiE a couple of times. Let's get into that story a little bit. You're part of TiE New York, which is, we'll talk about that, but I really want to talk about TiE Women also. But TiE New York is very active. You guys have 4 showcases a year, 2 pitch events a year. How do you guys think about the startup ecosystem, and where do you like to focus on?
New York's had a very interesting journey. I'm only 4 years old in the New York chapter, but I came at a time when there was great leadership in New York. So Sachin Shah, who was the president when I had joined, is this incredible leader. He's now in Boston, and he led the way for the next president. That was Chand, and then now for me to kind of inherit from Sachin and Chand, both terrific leaders. Focused on a couple of things, right? One was diversity level, to include, because we are in the financial capital of the world. we're sitting on a land of opportunities, right? So we were a very small community. We were some 20 odd charter members, kind of just running in their own little circle. Today, after 4 years, we are at 67 charter members, and we're really proud of the community because yes, we are diverse. We are an investor community. Truly helping all the founders that come to us, keeping in mind the pillars of TiE Global, right? We got a lot of help from TiE Oregon, from Nitin Rai especially. I mean, people like the ecosystem that we have, with TiE Global, the amount of resources we have, right? And
Absolutely.
it was a very simple question: if this chapter is succeeding, why can't we, right? I mean, what is it that we're not doing that we should be doing? Of course, keeping in mind the local nuances, right? Because you have to keep the landscape in mind. Everything in New York is transient in nature. It's open today, gone tomorrow. So you have to be very sensitive to that and, be able to address it. So we've created, a really tight ecosystem, which runs, of course, on the pillars of TiE Global. But we've done our own programming and, we've done our own kind of very heavy touch points for founders, so it is a lot of hand-holding that we do from open mic night to mentorship to pitch competition to angel showcase. So we've been very slow to kind of take off. But I think now we've reached that, really nice traction point, and hopefully we'll continue on this. But the diversity bit was really important, to be able to bring in all kinds of founders, all kinds of enterprises, because we don't know where the next game changer is going to come from, right? Absolutely. But being receptive, to those kind of entrepreneurs, for us was really very important. And on the flip side, having people willing to write checks for these guys, right?
Yep.
And marrying those two, I mean, that's really, really important. And so I think that's helped us a lot in being where we are. And so we're still young in terms of the number of investments and all of that, but we hope to catch up to chapters like yours and
I think the way I would put it is you guys have built this fantastic foundation. And now you can, go as high as you'd want on that foundation. And taking the time to make sure you get that right, I think is extremely important. And I think you guys have done it. So congratulations on that. I look forward to your leadership now, taking it to the new heights. So I'm very excited for that.
Will, because we've got great leadership in the pipeline. Amazing. And that's the other thing, right? Succession planning is equally important, right?
Absolutely.
Because all of us are kind of just, placeholders in a sense, but we want to make sure that we, deliver for the next person in line in a very, purposeful manner.
Absolutely. You want to have that next person to hand that baton off.
Like I was fortunate, to get it from Chand and Sachin, right? I mean, it's the same thing that we want to continue with. Yeah.
Absolutely. So now let's talk about TiE Women, which is a fantastic initiative, essentially a global initiative, right? You have tons of chapters participating in this. Tell us a little bit more about that ecosystem, and you're sort of leading the charge on that as well. So I want to understand your thinking on that.
Again, accidental. That's the keyword. Happened to be in Dubrovnik at a charter member retreat. And a few of us were, talking about how we need to have diversity, even from a TiE Global perspective. And we've got these amazing.
I don't think that's accidental. I think it's being in the right place at the right time and having the right skill set.
Absolutely. But, it depends on whether you believe in coincidences or not, right? But no, you're right. I think it's sometimes you're put in a place for a purpose that even you don't know about in that moment, but you kind of grow into it, and then hopefully you grow people around you with it. And so I'm really, to me, it's become something that's very personal, TiE Women, for sure, because as I mentioned, our trust does a lot for empowering women at a grassroots level. But here the conversation in Dubrovnik was more really about fostering women entrepreneurs, right? And looking at our global ecosystem and saying, okay, what is the chapter composition? Do we have enough women members? Do we have enough women board members? And what can we do to change that landscape? Without really upsetting the amazing ecosystem that we've created. So can we tap into the ecosystem and the resources that we have? So in that sense, my job was very easy, right? I mean, I just had to put up my hand as a volunteer and say, okay, I'm ready to take this on. But in the back of my mind, I knew what I was taking on, because TiE Global is truly this, in a sense, it's a best kept secret because people still don't know enough about it. Mm-hmm. And I hope it doesn't change when a lot of people know about it, or know a lot about it. But the nice thing is that and like any not-for-profit, right? Of course, there's egos, and there's anything that's written, driven by volunteers it's not going to be easy, right? And as we would say that if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? But the good part is that we have such a deep bench of mentors and investors, and the access on both sides, whether it's founders or investors, right? So all I had to do was draw out the women from the world and say, hey, come and look at us, right? And I got such great partnership, my co-chair, my earlier chair, and the committee that we put together. So idea was that we should be able to foster women entrepreneurs, but with a really specific focused target for the first year. That let's actually be able to tell a story, that we did all of this, and then we actually got money for these startups. And we didn't know what we were going to end up with. We said, let's just first do a little research on the existing chapter composition in terms of diversity, and then let's look at how we can help each other, because everyone has a strength and a weakness. Right. So New York's, strength could be used by, Atlanta, or Atlanta's strength could be used by New York, and and so much of that, dynamic interplay. It's really been an amazing journey for the last 18 months. We're in the second year of the program. We focused on early and late stage only, and the reason we wanted it to be around a pitch competition environment was that we could have best practices, we could have criteria that were equal opportunity. And now that's not an easy job, Dhaval, as you can imagine, right? Because balancing all these local ecosystems with their cultural nuances, geographic nuances, different approaches to diversity, right? What happens in India is very different from what happens in the US. But eventually what we found was that, fostering women entrepreneurs had certain similar issues, right? Similar pain points. And let's focus on addressing those pain points. And so we've been very strategic about getting to those pain points one by one, keeping in mind, the bandwidth that all of us have, the resources that we have. It is a volunteer-driven organization. So we created, programs that were helping women of early and late stage in the first year, with a pitch competition culmination in Dubai that we actually managed to execute in the middle of the pandemic. I don't know how we did it. Now, when I look back, I think we were definitely very fortunate for one.
It was fantastic.
It took a lot of guts, right? It took a lot of guts. All the chapter finalists, all the winners traveled to Dubai. The team traveled to Dubai. And that takes, something really incredibly special. And our idea was that even if we can impact, one woman at a time, and help her idea of how she wants to change the world and bring it to a larger audience, right? Where people, and so out of that, so many connections have happened. Investors have connected with these, female founders. Of course, there was the prize money that was given away. Now, for the second year, we've said, okay, let's look at more, concept level and, seed stage founders. So we introduced open mic night, and, we started doing that with all the different chapters. So the programming has really been, very strategically thought out. It's, set with a lot of transparency, equal opportunity. Last year, we had 2,200 applications, and we had 26 chapters that participated. This year, we're looking at 40 chapters. So all of a sudden, it's become a movement. Yeah. And at the same time, it's access for investors to look at startups and founders to find investors. And now all of a sudden, we are sector agnostic. Of course, we are, helping each other. We've got a lot of men leading chapters for us, for a TiE Women program. To me, that's true inclusion and diversity, right? And that's really our big focus for TiE Women. Dhaval, I can go on about TiE Women, so I'm just warning you, cut me off.
No. This is fantastic information, and I urge everyone to Google TiE Women, and we'll have the links in the description below also.
Yes.
Yes, TiEwomen.org. We'll put the link in the description so people can certainly learn more about this. It's a fantastic initiative, and some amazing things happening in this ecosystem. And I'm part of TiE SoCal. I'm hoping to add value to that initiative as well.
Absolutely, you are the chapter lead, Dhaval. So we, as I said, there are men who are leading chapters.
Absolutely.
Thank you. No, but the chapter really are the driving force. Yeah.
Absolutely, and it is really a fantastic initiative, and being a global initiative, bringing together businesses from a lot of different areas. There's so many synergies that come out of it. Obviously, investors also get very excited when they see this type of deal flow and this level of companies that are coming in. So overall, a fantastic initiative. I want to be mindful of your time. We're just about at before you cut me off. I want to ask you the action step question, because for the founders that are listening to us, we want to leave them with something that they have to do today. So let me ask you that question. What is the one thing that the founder must have before they reach out to you? We can make this as specific as you'd like. You can, you have a breadth, you've been part of 3 different angel groups, so you have a breadth of knowledge. So feel free to be as specific or as broad as you'd like, but what is that one action step that they must take today?
For me, it's one word, and then I'm happy to elaborate on that. It's really validation, right?
Validation.
It's a big one for me, and I do. And when I say validation, I'm not saying spend hundreds of thousands of dollars and give me huge data. And for me, validation is really about the value of the company, right? And as you know, Dhaval, a lot of founders everybody has a different approach, right? Someone is saying, I'm building a value. Someone's saying I'm building a valuation, right? There's a big difference. But for me, the focus is always about if you can come and tell me that 100 people are excited about your product or your service, I am listening to you. I am very happy to have, hours of conversation and see how we can then build on it. That's all, 100 people should believe in what you've created.
Yep.
That's a big deal for me. And I always talk about the, Snapchat story. It was, in high school that they started, right? I mean, look at the validation they got, and they knew what they were going after. They knew the target audience, and of course pivots are part of everyone's life, and entrepreneurship for sure, but validate, whatever it is that you're telling and stick to it. Find a niche, validate that, the rest will come. It becomes easy.
Absolutely. No, that's so important. And the validation doesn't have to be around a full product, right? It can be just a MVP. It can be even just a PowerPoint presentation, but those 100 people have to be excited, right?
And also, I'll give you an example. Recently, a health tech reached out to me, Dhaval, and they were saying, this is what we are attempting to solve. And when I looked at the deck and I said, wow, it's the kitchen sink. They're looking to solve everything. And I said, how are you going to do that? I said, maybe the question to ask is, did you get a doctor excited about this? Are you solving a problem for this doctor? Is it a pain point? And if you could solve it for one doctor, the chances are maybe there are other doctors who are, facing a similar pain point. Now, all of a sudden, you've got 50 doctors you're solving this for. Now we're talking, right?
Yep.
And so if you are, for example, an engineer who's coming with a tech product, you're building the product, you know what it takes. You're providing that solution to somebody who finds it very useful. Now, let's see, we've got a product market fit, and you have to price it, and you've got to run with it, right? Yep. It didn't take a lot. It didn't take tons of investors. And I'm not a big fan of saying, oh, I've got this and I'm now looking for investors. I'm raising this round and I've got this valuation. It doesn't mean anything to me. Tell me you've got a validated product. I'm not even going to say, give me revenue. Give me a validated product. That's it. Or service.
Yeah. No, fantastic. And that's such an important thing. A lot of founders here, the latest thing is that they're in stealth mode. They don't want to talk to anyone because they're in stealth mode. The idea is start talking to people and get a handful of people excited, and then investors have something to look at.
Absolutely. And to be just fair to those guys who are in stealth, I'm sure they're, coming up with the next big solution. There are lots of investors who have that philosophy. They're looking at a different, kind of approach. And so, somebody who's writing a check for $50,000 is not your perfect investor for the stealth mode company, right? You're better off going to people who are spending money on R&D, who are looking at, ESG, who are looking at other platforms that are going to really, be the Elon Musks of the world, right? I mean, and nothing wrong with that. I think it's okay to have that philosophy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Steroid is very helpful in matching. I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. Dhaval.
Exactly. That's the idea. That's the mission that we're going after. And we look forward to getting your insight and get you more involved in the platform as well. Dharti, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Dhaval, for your time and for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Bye.